Fishing is fun, but hooking is the only way. We're gonna show you how to catch some fish today.
Another big slab. So we're going into my second segment on crappie fishing, and basically I'm going to show you how to set your electronics, what frequencies to use, 2D, DownScan, SideScan, active, live. There's a lot to it, so I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you techniques as far as watching your line and how I hold my rod and everything. And hopefully you'll learn something from this. And don't forget, you can even watch the first segment that's already been up, and it's talking about your electronics. And following, there's going to be segment 3, which I'm going to show you all the tackle that you're going to need and actually show you some little tricks on how to tune your stuff in. And then there's going to be a segment 4, which I'm going to go in the kitchen and clean and cook. Show you how to cook them. In the first segment, I was in an area where they had a lot of wood. Now we're in grass. So what I did is I got my structure scan and I'm looking on the SideScan and I'm scanning, and this is what a weed infested area looks like. You got the boat right here. It's looking out at 40 feet on each side, and we're in 13 feet of water. And these right here you can hardly see, but you can see where the water column is. And this is the grass, and I can see spots, and those are fish. And what I'll do is I'll graph it like this. I can mark a spot, like touch it there. I mark it as a waypoint, number 24. And then I just put the GPS on after, come back, put my active live target down, and I actually see the fish and catch them. So sometimes I'll be going in here and I'll be looking for structure like this. This might be a laid down log, so it'd be an ideal spot if there's a lot of grass. Now we're coming down a little further. I went about 100 yards, and you're going to notice that the grass is dispersing, so there's not as much. And what I'll do is I'll go back to where I was, where the grass is thicker, and I'll get on one of these edge lines like this, and I'll put the boat in a position where the fish are going to be looking into the current, and I'm going to put the boat into the current, and I'm going to cast past them and reel back to them. And that's how I generate my strikes. And that little difference in the weeds could be 2 to 5 feet of water, where it's a difference in depth. And this is how important that piece of equipment is. A lot of questions I get asked all the time is, where do I set my sensitivity and the other settings on these units? First, 2D sonar, that's one of your most important. So your 2D sonar, you're going to see a frequency of either 200, 800, and your frequency choices, it's probably going to be 83 to 200. 83 is going to be a noisier, so you're going to see more noise in the screen, as you can see, and it looks a little bit wider. So I'm going to go a little bit further. This is showing you an 83 kilohertz. Now I'm going to put it in 200, and you're going to see that the noise is gone, so you don't get a lot of the garbage in the screen where you can't see it. I got a perfect picture here. You always want to make sure you see color all the way down. Your color line usually has to be where you want to bring it down to where I don't see any yellow, and then I'll bring it up. Usually around these units is going to be around 75%. The harder the bottom is, the more brighter that yellow will get. And as the ground becomes muddy, it'll go away and it'll turn red. But you can see how clear the 200 kilohertz is versus the 83. Then we go into DownScan. Total different creature. There's a lot of fish here. So this is on my DownScan. It also has a sensitivity control right here. And basically you always want to set the sensitivity where you see it all the way on the bottom. I'm going to back it down and show you what it'll look like. So I'm bringing it down. And what's happening is the picture is going to go away. So you're not going to see all those fish that were on there at first. But on the down scan versus the 2D, I'm going to bring it back up. So we see the fish. See the fish come back in? You see all those fish? Anything in yellow is a fish. So now I'm going to put right here. Very important tool. This is your regular 2D. This is down scan. So if I was in 10 feet of water, I'm only looking at a 4-foot target. This one I'm looking at 19 feet. This one I could see the weeds. If there was a tree, I would actually see a picture of the tree. Here you're just going to see globs. Obviously you see more fish here because this looks a lot wider. It's basically, I'm going to show you how I set up to start fishing. I already grafted, already marked my spots. I'm moving up to it now. I got my GPS chart on with the waypoint, and I'm going to pull right up to the spot. One of the things that I always pay attention to is current and wind. So when you're in any kind of current water, like the delta or the rivers or anywhere, fish have to look into the current to stay still. So I go up to the tree, I pull up to the side, and I get up to the top of the tree so I could pitch up above the tree and bring my jig down to the tree. That's the best way to do it. So I think boat positioning is really important when you're doing this kind of fishing. So I'm going to go up here, and one of the things is now that these trolling motors have this feature called spot lock. So I get up to the spot, get to where I want to do, touch this button, and the boat will stay there all by itself. Cast out, catch crappie, bring the jig down current into the fish. So fish are in the trees looking into the current. You go up above, spot lock it, and just bring your jig to them. And you'll catch them left and right. Okay, one of the things I want to show you guys how I do this. You know, I'm using 4-pound test, and it's only a 1/16 ounce jig. Once I locate my target, you know, where I know where the weed beds are or the log, I'll put the boat into the current because I'm down here in the delta, and I know those fish are looking into the current. That's the only way they could stay still. So I position my boat so I'm right next to it, maybe a little bit behind my target, and then I'm going to pitch it out. And what I do is I let the line out till it goes all the way out, and then I'll click it, and then what I do is I hold my rod up here about 11 o'clock. And the reason I do it is because these crappie, a lot of times you cannot feel them bite. So I'm using Loomis rods. I use some of the most sensitive rods on the market, and I can't feel them bite. So obviously I just watch the line. So if I hold the rod too low, my line is in the water. So I hold it up high about 11 o'clock, and I watch it, and I have a bow. And when that bow hits the bottom, the line stops. And a lot of times I just move it like this and let it sink, and you'll see the line twitch. It'll actually jump and you can't feel it. And set the hook, and there'll be a crappie on the end. I'm letting it go down to the bottom. See the line still going out. See the bow in the line? So holding the rod at around 11 o'clock, and then I'll watch my line. See that bowl? And a lot of times you'll just see it tick, jump like that, set the hook, it's a fish. So what I'm doing is I got a bowl on my line, and you'll see the line jump, and fish on. That's how you do it.
£4 test?
Yeah. I landed at 20-pound carp on 4-pound test.
Yeah, that must be some strong.
Oh,
Okay.
Big head. Those are good eating too.
Caught one yesterday too. That's a big bluegill there. So this is a different way. So when we were in the grass, I was metering a lot of them fish 5 feet down in the water column. It was 15 feet deep. So here I put the little jig about 5 feet from the cork, and it's better to use one of these that stand up, because if you're in the grass, it lays like this, so you know that the lure's not down, straight down, it's hung up in the grass, and then when it drops down, it'll be straight, and those crappie just go whoop and it's gone. So when you throw it out, that bobber, see how it's laying down like that? It would be in grass. Now it's straight up. So that's how you know when your bait is sitting in the right strike zone. And once in a while, I'll just twitch it like this. And when those fish hit it, that bobber just disappears. Very effective way of catching them, because what it does is suspends the jig. If you just casted the jig in there, it doesn't stay at that water column for more than a couple seconds. This way here, you can just let it sit there. And they'll wiggle around in those grass, and they'll all of a sudden that bobber would just disappear. Fish on. So very important how you hold your rod up. Then we were fishing grass. So that's a totally different, when you're fishing grass, what I do is I go in there with my SideScan and I'm looking around and I see that these fish are suspended. So in other words, I'm in 15 feet of water and they're only down about 5 feet cruising around in the grass. So here again, you got to know which way the water is moving, and then that way I position the boat into the weeds. So what I do is I cast it out, and a lot of times I'll let it sink to the bottom, and every time I throw it out, I get stuck. So the cure to that is to use a bobber. So where I know where those fish are around 5 feet, I put the bobber 5 feet up, cast it out, let it sit there. And a lot of times they like it when it suspends, when it's just sitting there not doing nothing. And because the current's always moving it. And like today, we caught a lot of fish on the bobber because, you know, those fish were all suspended. The bigger fish seem to suspend in the wintertime. Nice one. Ooh, this is a big one. Look at this one. Holy moly. Careful with this one. Another nice one. Ooh. When you look at our my tackle segment, I really don't tell you guys what I'm doing as far as like line. But when you're out here fishing for crappie in the wintertime, you don't want to use braid. You want to use a monofilament or a fluorocarbon coated over polymer, which is what I prefer. So I use a brand called Yozuri, and it's actually a fluorocarbon coated. And anything that's with mono that has stretch or fluorocarbon, you'll be a lot more successful. So the difference between braid and mono and fluoro, braid doesn't stretch. Crappie has some soft lips. You can use braid. I know a lot of people that use it, but I don't prefer it. I'd rather use the fluorocarbon or mono. Mono stretches more, it floats, it drops slower. So, you know, instead of suspending that jig with a bobber, a lot of times they're a little bit deeper and I can't get it to where, you know, the bobber's just too hard to do it. I'll use a lightweight with mono and it'll actually slow the jig down and it'll float down a little bit slower. And fluorocarbon is a line where the water is gin clear, like in a lake. If I can see 20 feet down, then I'll use the fluorocarbon coated stuff. So fluorocarbon is a line that the fish cannot see it. So basically, I use a monofilament to slow the drop down. It stretches so it doesn't pull out of the fish's mouth. Fluorocarbon, if I'm in a little cleaner water, then I'll use it, and it also sinks faster. So if you're catching them on the bottom, like when I was in the trees and stuff, I was using the fluorocarbon coated because I needed to get that jig in the current down 20 feet down. So there's a lot of reasons why I use different rods. You know, you're going to see 10 rods on my deck and they're all different and I know what they are, and the line is mono. If you looked at a rod that had mono and fluoro, you wouldn't be able to know the difference. You have to know what you have on those rods. So I use it line no matter what kind of fishing I'm doing to make my bait react right. I prefer to use clear, and I use 4 or 6 pound tests, preferably 4. What I'm looking at now is I'm using the active live target. I have it on DownScan, and you could actually see the grass, how it's growing to the surface, and you see all the little crappie and bluegill swimming around the weeds. And they're in there feeding like crazy. So any jig brought down there, you're gonna notice sometimes they're on the bottom. A lot of them are up off the bottom. So when we were using a bobber, like see those ones up on top, they would be easier to catch using the bobber. On the forward scan, it's actually looking forward, and I recommend like not shooting it out any further than 30 feet, and you'll see a better image of the fish. If you shoot it further, then you're gonna see little blurs. And basically what I found out is when I'm in a forward mode and I'm in less than 10 feet of water, it'll actually tell me that I'm in the down mode. So I think it's just because of the arc, the cone angle that's going out, it'll give you a bottom rating. So I think in deeper water, because I've had it in 20 foot of water and the forward works fine, but when we're in shallow water, look at all these fish down there. And we were catching them, we were getting bites every time we threw out, you'd hook one. So this thing is a really important tool, and I think it's going to be a game changer. Even though there's a lot of grass and weeds down on the bottom, you can actually see the fish. In all these videos I'm showing you in the active live, we sped it up maybe another 2 times so you could actually see the fish swimming along real fast. Because when we're down there and I'm fishing, I could see those fish just sitting in one little spot, and they move real slow. They're not darting around crazy. We just did this so you could get a better view of, actually what those fish are doing. So even though it's very weedy, the live target still picks up fish, and I saw a lot of them where you'd actually see the fish's tail. I want to thank you guys for tuning in on segment 1 and 2. I hope you learned something. I want to thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe and click like. Segment 3 is coming up, and it's going to be on the tackle I use and some other tips. And the 4th segment is going to be how to clean and cook them.
Fishing is fun, but hooking is the only way. We're going to show you how to catch some fish today.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's chasing something, isn't he?